Every day of learning strengthens your identity. Every day of growth strengthens your purpose. Every day of discipline strengthens your future. And the more you commit to this journey, the more unstoppable you become. Because while most people look for shortcuts, you are building the foundation. While most people wait for perfect conditions, you are shaping the mindset that thrives in any condition. While most people settle for familiarity, you are expanding into possibility. You begin realizing that your dreams are not distant. They are simply waiting for the version of you who is prepared to receive them. And daily self-education is the bridge that leads you toward that version. Every lesson brings you closer. Every insight makes you stronger. Every breakthrough makes the impossible feel a little more achievable. And as you continue growing, a new truth becomes clear. Success is not something you chase. It's something you create. It's the outcome of who you become, not what you wish for. And you are becoming someone extraordinary, one day of learning at a time. When you educate yourself daily, your dreams stop being fantasies and start becoming responsibilities. You no longer say, "I wish." You begin saying, "I will." You no longer hope for a better future. You build one. You no longer wait for opportunities. You create them. You become a force in your own life, not an observer. And the journey continues, every day, quietly, powerfully, intentionally. There comes a point on the journey of growth where you begin to see how much of life is shaped not by what happens to you, but by how prepared you are for what happens. Daily self-education becomes your preparation. It becomes the armor that protects you from confusion, and the compass that keeps you aligned when life tries to pull you off course. Most people fall apart when challenges arrive, not because the challenges are too big, but because their mindset is too untrained. But when you educate yourself daily, you build a mind that is ready, not fearful, not overwhelmed, not uncertain, but ready. You begin noticing how your thoughts shape your experiences. You become aware of the beliefs you carry and the influence they have on your behavior. You start recognizing patterns of self-sabotage, patterns of avoidance, patterns of procrastination, and you begin dismantling them with awareness instead of frustration. The more you learn, the more conscious you become. And consciousness is power. It allows you to make decisions rather than drift into them. It allows you to design your life rather than simply cope with it. Daily learning makes you more adaptable. The world is changing faster than ever. Economies shift, industries evolve, technologies transform, opportunities rise and fall. A mind that doesn't grow becomes outdated, but a mind that learns every day becomes timeless. It stays sharp, relevant, flexible, and able to thrive in any environment. You stop fearing change because you understand that the more you grow, the more capable you are of navigating whatever comes your way. And as you continue investing in your growth, you begin experiencing a different kind of clarity. Clarity about what truly matters. You start realizing that success isn't just about working harder, it's about thinking smarter. It's about learning to separate what deserves your time from what wastes it, what builds you from what drains you, what aligns with your future from what belongs in your past. This clarity is priceless. It saves you years of stress, confusion, and misdirection. The more you educate yourself, the more intentional your life becomes. You stop doing things out of habit and start doing them out of purpose. You stop surrounding yourself with people who hold you back and start seeking people who inspire you. You stop chasing approval and start chasing growth. You stop running from discomfort and start using it as fuel. Daily education builds a mindset that refuses to shrink. It's in this phase of your journey that your energy begins to shift. You speak differently. You listen differently. You think differently. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence that others can feel. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you're investing in your evolution. Every new insight adds depth to your character. Every new lesson strengthens your identity. Every new breakthrough rewrites your internal narrative. People who don't understand growth may misjudge you, They may think you're changing too fast, becoming too focused, too ambitious, too different. But that's exactly what growth requires. You cannot become the person you're meant to be while clinging to the version of you that stayed comfortable. Growth demands space. And that space often comes from letting go of old thinking, old habits, old environments, and sometimes even old relationships. But here's the beautiful part. The more you grow, the more you attract what aligns with your future. New opportunities begin showing up. New people enter your life who match your mindset. New ideas form that once seemed impossible. New levels of confidence emerge that help you take actions you were once afraid of. This isn't magic, it's alignment. Growth shifts your frequency, and your frequency shifts your life. Daily education also strengthens your discipline. Once you taste the progress that comes from learning, you begin craving consistency. You start respecting your time more. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop allowing your emotions to dictate your productivity. Growth gives you a reason to push yourself, even on days when you don't feel like it, because you understand that the future you want is built on the consistency you maintain, and slowly, without realizing it, you become a different person. Not a perfect person, but a powerful one. A person who doesn't run from challenges but rises to meet them. A person who doesn't wait for motivation but creates momentum. A person who doesn't chase success but builds themselves until success can't ignore them. There is a quiet transformation that happens when you choose growth as a lifestyle instead of a phase. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't make noise. It simply begins shaping you from the inside. You start realizing that every piece of knowledge you absorb becomes a brick in the foundation of a stronger, wiser, more capable version of yourself. And while the world may not see the change immediately, you feel it every day. You feel it in your perspectives, in your decisions, in your reactions, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you show up for your goals. Growth becomes a companion, a guide, a force that rewrites the limits you once placed on yourself. When you educate yourself daily, you start noticing patterns in your own life that you were blind to before. You see the habits that hold you back. You see the beliefs that limit your potential. You see the fears that keep you small. And slowly, you begin to dismantle them. You replace weakness with strength. You replace confusion with clarity. You replace fear with courage. This is the internal rebuilding process that most people never experience, not because they are incapable, but because they never commit to daily learning long enough to see the transformation. People often ask why success seems easier for some and impossible for others. But the real answer is internal, not external. The people who succeed are not inherently more talented. They are simply more trained. Their mind is conditioned. Their discipline is strengthened. Their focus is sharpened. Their habits are refined. They see the world through a different lens because they've trained themselves to think differently every single day. Success doesn't require perfection. It only requires persistence. Every day of self-education is like depositing money into an account that compounds over time. At first, the change is small, almost invisible, but slowly, the interest begins to accumulate, and the results grow exponentially. This is why most people never experience high-level success. They quit before the compounding effect kicks in. They stop learning right when their future was about to shift. But the person who keeps going, who keeps learning, who keeps growing, is eventually rewarded with results that others can't even imagine. Daily education changes the way you handle adversity. Instead of breaking down, you slow down. Instead of panicking, you problem solve. Instead of quitting, you recalibrate. You develop the emotional intelligence to navigate challenges with clarity instead of chaos. You realize that every setback contains a lesson, and every lesson contains a step forward. This mindset shift makes you unstoppable because growth becomes your default response to hardship. And something even more powerful happens when you commit to lifelong learning. Your self-worth increases. Not the shallow kind based on validation or achievements, but the deep internal kind that comes from knowing you are building yourself. You feel proud of the discipline you've created. You feel proud of the effort you invest in your future. You start seeing yourself as someone capable, someone reliable, someone worthy of a better life. That inner confidence is magnetic. It changes the way you walk, the way you communicate, the way you approach your goals. People notice it. Opportunities notice it. Life responds to the energy of someone who values their own growth. Self-education also reveals your potential you may have buried under years of doubt, fear, or societal expectations. You begin discovering strengths you didn't know you had, talents that were sleeping inside you, passions that ignite your spirit. You begin envisioning a life that once felt impossible. And the moment you can envision it, you start moving toward it. But remember this, growth requires space. Space in your mind, space in your habits, space in your environment. And sometimes educating yourself daily means outgrowing people, places, and patterns that no longer align with your future. Not everyone will understand your commitment to learning. Not everyone will support your evolution. And that's okay. Growth is not meant to be understood by the people who choose comfort. It is meant to be lived by the people who choose progress. The more you learn, the more you will value your time, your energy, and your environment. And slowly, your circle will shift. Your priorities will shift. Your habits will shift. This is not loss, it is alignment. Every step of this journey builds a version of you who can no longer accept a small life. You begin expecting more from yourself. You begin demanding more from your future. You begin raising your standards, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. You have seen what happens when you invest in yourself, and now you know you are capable of so much more. That realization alone is enough to transform your destiny. Imagine waking up every day with the awareness that you are becoming better, smarter, stronger, and more capable than you were yesterday. Imagine carrying a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are preparing yourself for the opportunities that haven't appeared yet. When you educate yourself daily, you outgrow fear. You outgrow insecurity. You outgrow the limitations that once held you back. And most importantly, you outgrow the version of yourself that accepted less than what you deserved. Growth is addictive. Once you start experiencing it, once you start feeling the mental shift, once you start noticing the increase in your clarity, your confidence, and your discipline, you can't go back. You won't want to, because you begin to taste a new level of self-respect. You begin realizing that you have far more potential than you ever allowed yourself to believe, and that realization becomes fuel. It pushes you from being passive in life to being intentional, from drifting to leading, from reacting to creating. But this journey requires something many people avoid: taking responsibility for your own mind. The biggest difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck is ownership. High achievers take ownership of their growth. They don't wait for someone to teach them. They don't rely on school systems, bosses, or mentors to shape their destiny. They take the wheel. They become active builders of their mind. When you take responsibility for your learning, you stop being a passenger and start being a driver. And once you start driving, life begins to move in the direction you choose. You no longer depend on circumstances to define you. You no longer depend on other people to motivate you. Your growth becomes your motivation. Your progress becomes your inspiration. Your consistency becomes your identity. You start seeing life differently. You begin recognizing that success is not about being the smartest or most talented. It's about being the most committed to growth. You understand that your competition is not other people. It's your old mindset. It's the version of you that procrastinated, doubted, hesitated, or settled. Every day you educate yourself, you defeat that version. Every day you invest in your mind, you create a new standard for your life. Daily education doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need expensive programs or long hours. Consistency is more valuable than intensity. 10 pages of a book, one chapter of an audiobook, a 15-minute podcast, a short lesson, a meaningful conversation, a moment of reflection. It all counts. It all stacks. It all builds. What matters is that you are feeding your mind something that makes you grow instead of something that makes you stagnant. And over time, these small daily investments turn into massive mental wealth. You become the kind of person who thinks deeply before reacting. You become the kind of person who understands patterns before others see them. You become the kind of person who can solve problems that overwhelm everyone else. You become the kind of person who brings clarity instead of confusion, who brings solutions instead of excuses. That is the power of daily education, and life rewards people who rise above the ordinary. Life rewards those who build themselves. Life rewards those who prepare for the opportunities they seek. When you educate yourself daily, you shift from hoping for success to engineering it. You move from dreaming to building, from wishing to executing, from waiting to becoming. You begin to attract people who think like you. You begin to align with opportunities that match your growth. You begin to build habits that strengthen your future. And slowly, your lifestyle begins to change. Your goals begin to expand. Your voice begins to strengthen. Your decisions become sharper. Your energy becomes focused, and your identity becomes unshakable. This is the moment where growth becomes not just a habit, but a lifestyle, a mindset, a way of existing. You no longer learn because you need to. You learn because it's who you are. You become someone who refuses to allow a single day to pass without feeding your mind, because success is built in days, not in moments, in habits, not in dreams, in consistency, not in intensity. And the more you learn, the more you evolve. The more you evolve, the more life opens up for you. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that the world is not waiting for them. Opportunities don't pause. Time doesn't slow down. Life doesn't knock twice. And while many people drift through their days expecting something magical to happen, achievers take control. They create momentum instead of waiting for it. They build themselves instead of wishing for chances. And the foundation of everything they build is daily self-education. Growth becomes their personal responsibility, not something they outsource to someone else. When you begin to educate yourself daily, something powerful starts happening inside you. Your mind becomes sharper. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions stabilize. Your sense of direction deepens. You begin understanding life not as a series of random events, but as a system of patterns, principles, and decisions. You start noticing the mindset differences between people who struggle and people who succeed. You begin recognizing the difference between excuses and strategies, between wishful dreaming and disciplined action. Self-education turns your scattered thoughts into structured dreams, and those dreams eventually turn into results. The truth is, the world rewards those who know how to think, not those who simply show up. Knowledge gives you that edge. When you educate yourself daily, you gain the ability to make better choices, choices that protect your time, elevate your standards, and align with your long-term goals. You begin to understand money differently. You understand people differently. You understand opportunities differently. It's not luck that makes someone successful. It's their ability to interpret life through a more powerful mindset. Most people underestimate how quickly their lives can change when they commit to small daily growth. They think transformation requires a sudden life-changing event, a huge breakthrough, or a dramatic shift. But real transformation is subtle. It's quiet. It happens in the mind long before it happens in reality. Every day that you learn something new, you upgrade your inner operating system. You become wiser, stronger, calmer, more strategic, and slowly, the gap between who you are and who you want to become starts closing. Success isn't built on intensity, it's built on consistency. Anyone can be motivated for a day. Anyone can be productive for a week. But the people who rise above everyone else are the ones who choose to learn every single day, especially on days when they don't feel like it. That discipline molds them. It gives them an identity, a psychological blueprint that separates them from the masses. They don't read to impress others. They read to elevate themselves. They don't study to sound smart. They study to live intentionally. They don't grow because someone expects it. They grow because they refuse to settle. Imagine what would happen if for the next 1 year you committed to learning something every single day, not in a rushed or forced way, but with intention. Imagine reading for 20 minutes every night. Imagine listening to audiobooks during your commute. Imagine studying people you admire, learning from their failures, their habits, their strategies. Imagine replacing 1 hour of scrolling with 1 hour of self-development. Imagine who you would become. Imagine the opportunities you would recognize. Imagine the confidence you would build. Imagine the income you could create. Imagine the doors that would open. You are never stuck. You are never too late. You are never too behind. You are simply one decision away from turning your entire life in a new direction. Your future is not written in stone. It is written by the choices you make every day. And the most powerful choice you can make is the choice to grow. Success is not speed. It's consistency. The people who win are not the ones who learn everything in a single week. They are the ones who learn something every single day. They stack small progress into massive transformation. They build habits that create momentum. And once momentum begins, your entire life upgrades with it. You begin thinking differently, speaking differently, behaving differently, expecting differently, and ultimately achieving differently. This is how leaders are built. This is how confidence is built. This is how success is built. 1 day of learning, repeated again and again until the results become undeniable. But none of it happens unless you decide to start. Not tomorrow. Not when life gets easier. Not when you feel ready. Today. Now. In this moment. Because the version of you that you want to become is waiting on the other side of consistency. And your transformation begins with a simple commitment. Educate yourself daily. Every morning begins with a simple choice, a choice so small that most people ignore it, yet it quietly shapes the entire direction of their lives. That choice is the decision to grow, intentionally, consistently, and with discipline. Success never arrives by accident, and those who rise in life, those who impact the world, those who achieve beyond the expectations of their environment, all share one habit in common. They educate themselves daily. This simple daily commitment becomes the silent engine that propels them forward while the rest of the world hesitates, complains, or waits for motivation. And if you're listening to this message right now, it's because there is something inside you, something powerful, something restless, something hungry that knows you're meant for more than the ordinary path life hands to most people. Maybe you've felt it for years. Maybe you've ignored it. Maybe you've been waiting for the perfect moment to start. But deep inside, there is an awareness that your potential is bigger than your current reality, and it is calling you to take responsibility for your future. This is your moment, because the truth is, success never begins with money, opportunity, luck, or connections. It begins with the simple decision to educate your mind every single day, to sharpen your thinking, to shape your beliefs, to train your discipline, and to strengthen the voice inside you that refuses to settle for average. Education is not something you leave behind after school. Real education is a lifelong commitment. It's the process of learning who you are, how you think, what you want, and how the world around you works. Each new idea you learn becomes a tool. Each hour you spend in intentional learning becomes an investment. And each piece of wisdom you absorb becomes a seed that grows into competence, clarity, and confidence. The people you admire, the successful entrepreneurs, the top leaders, the high performers, are not lucky. They built themselves through daily self-education long before anyone noticed them, long before their success became visible. And if you want that kind of life, freedom, opportunity, financial strength, emotional stability, personal power, it starts with building yourself from the inside out, every day, consistently, without excuses, because your mind is your greatest asset, and the more you develop it, the more unstoppable you become. Knowledge transforms you. It shapes your decisions, and your decisions shape your destiny. When you feed your mind daily, you begin to see opportunities others miss. You become aware of patterns others ignore. You start believing in yourself in ways you never believed before. You begin to act boldly, speak confidently, think strategically, and live intentionally. Most people spend their days reacting to stress, reacting to distractions, reacting to circumstances. They wake up without direction, go through the same routine, fall into the same habits, repeat the same mistakes, and wonder why nothing changes. But achievers design their days, they design their mindset, they design their habits, and everything starts with daily learning. Even 20 minutes of intentional education each day compounds into something extraordinary. Because education doesn't just teach you, it transforms you. It rewires your brain. It sharpens your perspective. It expands your dreams. And the more you learn, the more your life begins to rise in alignment with that growth. The greatest secret of all high achievers is that they build a relationship with learning. They treat reading, listening, studying, observing, and thinking as fuel, not chores. They know that every new idea gives them an edge. Every book gives them a new lens. Every lesson gives them a new strategy. Knowledge becomes power, not because it sits in your mind, but because it shapes who you become while pursuing your goals. When you educate yourself daily, you begin a process of inner evolution. You rise above limiting beliefs. You replace confusion with clarity. You replace fear with confidence. You replace procrastination with purpose. And suddenly, you no longer rely on motivation. You rely on discipline, identity, and growth. That is where real success begins. Most people never become successful because they never work on the one thing that controls their entire life: their mind. They work on their job, but not on themselves. They invest in entertainment, but not education. They buy things that lose value instead of building habits that increase their value. And when life becomes difficult, they feel stuck, helpless, overwhelmed, not because life was unfair, but because they were unprepared. Daily education protects you from that. It gives you mental strength, emotional balance, financial awareness, and personal clarity. It makes you wiser than your environment and stronger than your struggles.